Thank you for joining me tonight. Tonight we're welcoming top Atlanta dermatologist, Dr. Corrie Alford. We have been having some connectivity issues, and so this will be our last and final. Like Aaron Hall said at the end of Goodbye Love, this is our final try.
Okay,
Corrie,
now I think we're in business.
are we in the building, Corrie?
I think so. I think
Okay.
it's better.
All right. For everybody that's joining us, we're joined here by my classmate from the Olympic class of Spelman College and Morehouse College, Dr. Corrie Alford. Dr. Corrie, can you tell us who Dr. Corrie Alford is?
Dr. Corrie Alford is a thoughtful, compassionate, driven woman who is a wife, mother, and a physician.
All right. I love it. I love it. Where are you from, Corrie?
I grew up in Hempstead, New York, which is on Long Island. I am the youngest of 3 siblings, and I was always the baby.
Okay.
Always trying to be my siblings, always trying to catch up with them.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. When you were a child, who were your biggest influences?
Who were my biggest influences? I guess my dad was probably one of my biggest influences. He was a science teacher and a school administrator, and he demanded the best of us.
Okay.
Sometimes to our detriment, but you know, if you look at my life now, I think it worked out for me. Okay.
Okay. What subjects did he teach?
He taught chemistry, and he taught math. So in the old math, it was called trigonometry, but I don't know where it fits in the new math now.
Okay. So
Yeah.
so Corrie, as you progressed through high school, through as you matriculated through elementary, junior high, high school, how did you go about choosing what undergraduate institution you were going to?
So I went to high school at a small Quaker high school on the North Shore of Long Island, where I was the scholarship kid who was bussed in from the wrong side of the tracks.
How was that?
That was rough. It was, it made me who I am, but in the midst of it, it was not pleasant. So in elementary school, I went to our local public school, where I was too white to be black. And then when I went to private school, I was too black to be white. And so I constantly was kind of in this in between, never belonging, never anywhere. And so I decided that I was tired of being the only black person. I was tired of feeling like I didn't belong. And I was tired of feeling like people doubted the fact that I was intelligent. And so I went on a college tour, and we went to all the HBC, well, not all of them, but we went to, I think it was 14 HBCUs from between New York and Atlanta.
On one trip, Corrie?
10-year-old kids and drive them all over. Uh-oh, I think you went out a little bit there.
Oh, goodness. Not now. You know it's Putin, right?
I know it is. It's back, though. It's back.
All right. You went to 14 schools on one trip?
So we went to 14 different schools in one trip. Wilberforce, Fisk, Tuskegee, Spelman, Morehouse, Hampton, Howard, Tennessee State. I'm sure I'm missing some of them, but it was the best week of my life. We did it a week in the fall. And we went to all of the different schools, and it was nice, but when I walked through the gates at Spelman, I was home.
Okay.
And so it was there have been a few times in my life when God has spoken to me like directly, and Spelman was one of those times.
Okay. So for those that are just joining, we are here with Dr. Corrie Alford, top dermatologist here in Atlanta, and also my classmate from undergraduate. Everybody knows how I feel about Morehouse, Corrie. Can you share the types of experiences you had at Spelman that you felt were defining in terms of who you would come to be as a woman and your outlook as a sister on life?
So I tell people all the time, I would not be who I am had I not gone to Spelman College. Hands down, no question about it. I rep two things with my, gear and everything. I rep my children's schools and I rep Spelman. And, I got a med school and all that kinds of, I never wear Emory gear. But anyway,
Right.
so what I learned at Spelman is that the only things I couldn't do were the things I told myself I couldn't.
Mm.
There
You,
was nothing beyond my reach unless I said it was so.
mm.
And that I should demand of myself and the people around me excellence at all times. And to do
Cor-
so, and to not do so was beneath me, right? I think that was the take home, was that you are innately powerful. Don't let the world tell you otherwise.
you said a word there, Reverend. Is preaching in your future in addition to
No, 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 sir.
dermatology?
No, sir.
So, Corey, what you major in undergrad?
I was biology major and a math minor.
Oh, math, straight
Math.
up.
I got it from my daddy.
I did not know that. I did
Yes.
not know that. Okay, so when did you decide that you wanted to be a doctor?
I decided I never wanted to be anything else. My grandmother, so as a little girl, my parents had a little bit of a rough relationship. And so we spent a lot of time with my dad's mom, who we called Nana, and she was my person. She fed me, which was my favorite. That's my love language, is food.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, but she died of a really terrible breast cancer when I was 8.
I'm sorry.
And it was a horrible, ugly, wretched death that I would never wish on anyone.
Mm.
She had metastatic disease at diagnosis, but yet they proceeded to do mastectomy and chemo and all of these things that were never going to save her. Now I know that. I didn't know that at the time, but
Right.
at the time, my parents could not explain to me what was wrong with her. And they could, because I think that they didn't understand. I think that the doctors that she had didn't include them in much of what was going on with her. And so she died, and she was my favorite person in the world.
Yeah.
And so I thought, what if there were doctors who weren't like that? What if someone would have communicated with her family, and maybe they would have made different end of life decisions for her.
Right, right, right. So you ended up going to Emory. How was
Yes.
that experience?
Emory was an interesting experience. Emory was much like Spelman. I wouldn't be the doctor I am had it not been for Emory, because, we were in the throes of Grady. It is the natural history of disease. I got to do things that when I moved on, my counterparts had never even dreamed of doing.
Yeah.
So it was a great education. I was a single parent when I entered medical school, which is an odd thing. Medical education is not designed for parents, let
Right.
alone single Black women with children.
For sure.
But I had a rather accepting classmates who were always willing to make allowances for me, and that helped me a lot. But the administration was not always as allowing for me. So the way that Emory started was we took embryology for like 2 or 3 weeks at the very beginning. And I did rather well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got a call that I needed to go see the dean. And I was thinking, what on earth could be wrong? I don't know why I'm going to see the dean. And I walked in and he said to me, well, I didn't expect you to make it this far.
What?
Yes. Yes.
That's crazy.
And at that moment, I made the decision that he was going to hood me in 4 years, and that he
I
was
heard that.
those words. So,
And,
yeah. So it was a mixed bag.
and you went over there and showed out.
Yep.
That
I made
I know you.
KOA. I matched in derm. Yeah.
Okay. And so for those that don't know, Corey said she matched in derm. When we leave, when we're about to go to residency, there's a program where we apply and we rank where we would like to go, and programs in turn rank their top candidates. It's called matching. And on top of that, dermatology is one of the hardest, if not the hardest, residency to get, and they only accept the creme de la creme. So we're sitting here with the best of the best. So hats off to you, Corrie, for doing it in 4 years with a kid as a single mama. And so how did you choose derm, Corrie?
It was an accident. I actually thought I wanted to do ID. I had done a bunch of in HIV and Shiga toxin, which is the E. coli toxin. And so I thought, I'm going to go into ID. And I did like a day of ID, and I was like, oh, this is not for me. And
for the layman, ID is infectious diseases.
Oh, infectious disease. Yeah, so I thought that's what I wanted to do, and then I said, I don't know. So at the very beginning, so the special thing about Emory was, at the time that I was there, the dean of the medical school was a dermatologist, and so derm was required, which in most medical schools that's not true. And so I started my rotations with psych and derm. And they're kind of hooked together in like a little package. And during derm, I was like, this is cool. I kind of like it. There's, it's some medicine, it's some surgery, it's adults, it's kids, it's the hardest stuff. It's the stuff that no one really feels comfortable with. They're like, ooh, it's red and it's gross, I don't want to touch it. So there was a point where I was in the Grady Derm clinic, and there was a guy, they used to bring the consults down to the clinic, and there was a gentleman. Now this was also kind of the late 90s, so HIV was still really prevalent. And so HIV positive guy, and he got up out of the wheelchair to walk to the room, and his skin was falling off on the floor.
His skin was falling off?
His skin was falling off on the floor. And I thought to myself, what on earth could be wrong with this man that his skin is falling on the floor? So I followed him to figure out like what is wrong with him. Everybody else going in the opposite direction, right? Like they were like, he smelled, it was bad. I mean, it was not pleasant. And so the attending that day said, you should think about derm. And I was like, well, what makes you say that? And she was like, look at your classmates at the other end of the hall. None of them came in here to see what was wrong with this man.
Right.
So, so at that point, the seed was planted, but living a life where you have always been told that you might not be good enough, sometimes it's hard to erase that idea. Even after 4 years of Spelman, there's still that voice in the back of your head that says, maybe you don't really belong here. You can't really do that, right? And so people were often like, are you really going to try to do derm? And I was like, well, I'm going to try, but I'm not sure if I'm going to make it. And then over time, I mean, people were like, I think you could do it. And I always had an exit plan just in case I didn't match. But that's how I kind of fell into derm. And then I decided that, with a child in medical school, you realize what the lifestyle does to you, and that you might not be able, I really thought hard about plastics at one point. I did a plastic sub-eye, and man, the fellow scudded me so bad. I did all his rounds. I was at the hospital at 4:30 in the morning every morning, it's horrible. And I decided that, like, I can't do that. Like, that's just not feasible for somebody that has children. So derm was kind of this makes sense. It, reasonable hours, reasonable compensation, all those good things.
No doubt. Where'd you do residency?
The University of Pittsburgh Medical Center.
Oh, you went to Pittsburgh?
I went to Pittsburgh. I followed my husband, who was already there.
Okay. Her husband is also my classmate, Dr. Aaron Alford, esteemed general surgeon, good guy, and you went to Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. You're from Long Island, so you're used to the cold.
No, I was not. So
you weren't used to the cold?
I had the cold. The cold had left me by the time I got to Pittsburgh. But Pittsburgh had one up on New York because it's gray. It is the grayest place on earth. So I learned that I could not live someplace like that. And when we were getting close to the end, I was like, you got to go so that we can get out of here. I cannot stay here. And so I tolerated it, but I did not enjoy it.
Okay. So your current practice, you are a board certified dermatologist here in the A.
Mhm.
We have a whole lot of Black folk in the room right now. What are some of the most common skin the most common, I don't want to just say skin, but most common illnesses that you treat amongst African Americans?
I treat lots of things because sadly, I think a lot of people go to the doctor and they feel like they're not heard, right? So they just look for me for all types of things. But the sad things that I see frequently, hair loss in women is a huge problem. And it doesn't get talked about very often. And I think it carries shame with it. And so women will often wait till it's later than it should be before they seek help. So I do see a lot of women with hair loss. Lots of bad rashes, psoriasis, bad
Mm-hmm.
dermatitis, and keloids. I actually have like a lot of people who have keloids that need treatment. So those are the places where I have definitely kind of have a niche.
You know, I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't tell everybody. Not only is Dr. Corrie a colleague of mine and a friend, but she also is my doctor and has been the doctor for just about my whole personal family. So I think that the highest compliment that you can give anybody is to go to them as a patient and also to have them see your family. I want to thank you for that, Corrie.
It is my
I do want to ask this because the people want to know ashiness. Is
ash.
is ashiness a disease?
It is.
And are other people are other people afflicted by ashiness like we are?
It has to do with the fact that it has to do with pigmentation more than anything else. So it's basically just the dry. So the top layer of your skin is the stratum corneum. It's dry. It's supposed to flake off. If your skin is white, you can't see it. And so ashy is just a reflection of your constitutive pigmentation showing behind, yeah,
Uh,
behind that.
Okay,
So
okay. So
I see plenty of Caucasian people who are as dry as ashy folk, but you just really see it as well.
okay, so ashiness is a democratized,
Yes.
equal opportunity pest.
Yes. I have people take their clothes off and erupt scales into the air because they are so dry. And
Erupting scales in the air.
people have this horrible idea that when they come to me, they should not put on lotion. And I don't understand why they say they want me to see it the way it really is. And I'm like, Lord, put some lotion on. But yeah, so about half of my day is me telling people to lotion, just lotion.
Lotion. Okay, so Corrie, now we're getting into the weeds because the people want to know. The people want to know. Can you tell us about the types of lotions? Because I think when I saw you one time, you made it clear that all lotions were not
It's not,
created equal. Is that
all
correct?
lotion is not created equal. And so there are, so in the winter, you want to stick, lotion is an emulsion of water and oil, right? And so the more oil that is in your lotion, the thicker it gets. So in the winter, you need a cream. Cream is the highest percentage of oil over water. The thin things, if you are in the winter and you are dry and itchy and you are squirting your lotion out of a bottle, it's not thick enough. So in the winter, you need something in a jar or in a tube.
Oh man,
Yes.
Corey, see, you know, we should have had a lotion boot camp
It was,
at some point because I did not know that creams were the highest level.
yes.
Corey, there is a question in the room from our classmate, Cy Singletary, class of
Yeah.
'96. Cy asks, can you talk about natural body oils and shea butter?
So there are your endogenous oils is a combination of 3 different oils that are mixed together.
For those that are layman, endogenous means your body's natural
Sorry.
oils.
Yeah, your body's natural oils. But everybody's ratios are a little bit different. So interestingly enough, people that have like bad scalp itching and flaking, their oil combination is just the right thing to grow yeast. And so they have problems with like red, flaky scalp. And
Oh,
so the same
oh,
thing happens with, some people will tell you I'm oily and some people will tell you that they're not oily. And so it is very much hereditary, whether or not you have oily skin or not, right? So
Right.
some of it's environmental, but some of it is definitely hereditary. I had super oily skin as a kid, but my dad had really oily skin. He used to say, "Oh, be happy because you won't have wrinkles," but that's not true. Don't believe that. And so when you get beyond natural, when you talk about natural oils, you hear all the time, there's always a fad oil around. Right now it's castor oil for hair loss. And let me say this right now, castor oil does not help hair loss. If I see one more TikTok video telling somebody to put castor oil in their head, it does not help hair loss. Okay.
Corey, I just feel like I need to ask you, what are they saying about, are you supposed to, are they recommending you rub castor oil
Yeah,
in?
there's lots of people peddling castor oil for hair loss. There was actually a meta-analysis, which is a combination of all the different studies that looks at the effectiveness, and there is no benefit to castor oil for the scalp. But there are benefits to other oils. So people like shea butter, and I usually tell people be careful about shea butter because they put like a drop of shea butter in the lotion and then put it on the name, and there's very little. You would do better to get kind of more of a raw product from somebody that's making it rather than, Shea Moisture doesn't have a whole lot of shea butter in it, honestly. And then things like olive oil and pumpkin seed oil. So there's lots of uses for oil. So olive oil is actually very beneficial, but it needs to be extra virgin. And you can use it. There are studies to show effectiveness for olive oil, particularly in atopic dermatitis. Pumpkin seed oil actually has been shown to be effective for hormonal acne in women.
Get out.
And so there's a place, I think, unfortunately, there's this tug of war between people who are looking at natural things and kind of always touting just the natural things, and people who are touting like the allopathic medical route, where I think the truth actually lies somewhere in the middle. And so I'm actually starting a certificate program in integrative derm this spring, which looks at how to bring those two things together to get people better results.
Okay. Okay, so we have touched on that. Corey, can you talk to us about soaps? I mean, I think one of the things that you mentioned to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you cured me so good, I haven't had to come see you in like 7 years. You cured me. But did you say that you shouldn't wash your face with the same soap that you use on your body?
Probably not, especially if your skin is sensitive. So your body soap is often kind of dry. Your body soap, especially men's body soap, if you're using a deodorant soap like Irish Spring or something like that, that's way too drying for your face. You would never want to use that on your face. And the whole idea that you have to wash your face with soap, it varies from person to person. Some people like micellar waters and things like that rather than kind of sudsing agents. In Europe, apparently they don't really advocate like sudsing agents for your face, and they age beautifully. So I think it has to do with understanding your skin and not getting sucked into all of the things that you see advertised.
Would you recommend people preemptively going to see a dermatologist to get a regimen for themselves versus trial and error?
I think if you're having trouble, I have lots of people who come in and say, everything I try is irritating to me, or I've tried everything and I'm still really oily. And if you're having trouble finding something that works for you, then I would say definitely see a dermatologist, because you may be allergic to things. I have people all the time that come in and they have contact dermatitis to something they're using, and it's like their makeup wipes or something else that they've purchased, and they don't put two and two together to realize that the reason it won't go away is because they keep rubbing it on every day.
Right. There's a question in the room. What about Pure Africa black soap for the body?
Black soap is okay for the body so long as you are not dry. So African black soap is very alkaline, and it will dry you out if you have bad like eczema. And so that sometimes gets people in trouble. In and of itself, it's fine. But if you have really dry skin, I find people who really struggle with it.
Okay. One of the things that is in the wheelhouse of dermatologists, I think that a lot of people don't understand, is not just skin, because the skin is an organ, right? It's skin, hair,
Hair,
and then
oral mucosa,
or
genital
yes.
mucosa, because strangely enough, GYN send me things all the time. Um, and I'm like, wait, this is your end, not mine. But still us.
Um, keloids.
Keloid.
Can you tell us a little bit about keloids?
So keloids are excessive scarring that occurs more commonly in populations of color, both Asian and African cultures. And it can be spontaneous, meaning some people get keloids without really a noticeable injury, like they've not had surgery, they didn't cut themselves. Often they begin on the chest, neck, and kind of back. It's kind of like a shawl-like distribution where keloids are bad. The problem with them is they can be a little bit difficult to treat. Um, Cutting them out is often a difficult thing in
Yeah.
certain. There are lots of new things that we can do, but often the mainstay of therapy is injecting either steroids, or actually sometimes we'll inject 5-FU or 5-fluorouracil, which is actually chemotherapy to try to kill the histiocytes that are continuing to make scar tissue when it should probably have stopped. They're often itchy and painful, and in certain areas they can be disfiguring. In an area where it's really functionally problematic, there are some plastic surgeons that will excise and then move on with radiation, superficial radiation.
Okay. I know that if you're just joining the room, we are here with Dr. Corrie Alford, top Atlanta dermatologist. She is holding a master class on the things in particular that affect us. We've already we've gotten everybody to move from ashy to classy. We've talked about keloids. We've talked about different soaps. Corrie, folk with dandruff issues.
Dandruff issue. So dandruff is super common, and often it starts in adolescence because it has to do with your oil production. It varies in severity, and it lives on a spectrum with just a little flaky, which is what we call dandruff. And then there's what we call seborrheic dermatitis, which is red and flaky and often itchy. And then it moves on into psoriasis, which is bright red, thick scales. And when you get to the psoriasis end of the spectrum, those scales are so thick that they will often pull your hair out. And so people will lose hair in the areas that that they have the scales. There's a couple of things. There's two things that you have to do. Often there's a very heavy yeast component there. And so finding a way to kill the yeast is helpful. A lot of times people use antifungal shampoos or tea tree shampoos, things like that will help to decrease the yeast. Sometimes I oral yeast, if oral antifungals, if I need to. And then you have to calm your body's reaction to the yeast. And so that often includes things like topical steroids and things like that.
Okay.
I do have some folks who notice that it's dietary on some level. And so I think this is where dermatology we haven't quite got the data to associate things, but I definitely have people who say, yeah, if I eat a bunch of sugar, this goes crazy. Or if I am eating poorly, this is bad. I actually have seborrheic dermatitis. It is well controlled until the season changes. So when the season changes, I get all flaky and itchy. And then when the season settles out again, it's fine. And so I often don't really have to treat it. But if I do, I usually can get away with just shampoo. I don't need much else.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you about
To know about things to make your hair grow?
Yeah. What herbs or oils grow hair, if any,
So
except?
it depends on what. So when you look at hair growth, the hair growth industry is ripe with things that don't do a darn thing. So you can find expensive shampoos and conditioners that all claim to grow your hair, and the vast majority of them don't, honestly. There are a few things that I have seen help. So there is a vitamin that I do not have any financial stake in called Nutrafol, and there's another one called Viviscal. And most hair, skin, and nail vitamins contain biotin and B vitamins. These two have proprietary formulations that contain herbal substances, often they are targeted to a specific demographic. So why you lose hair as a young woman is usually postpartum hair loss. Then women in middle age lose hair for a completely different reason. And then men lose their hair for a different reason. So they often have very specific products that are geared toward that demographic, which is probably the way you should. The other thing that I often tell people when they're having problems with hair growth is make sure somebody knows whether your thyroid is okay. Vitamin D deficiency will cause your hair to thin or shed. Zinc deficiency will cause your hair to shed, and protein deficiency. So sometimes when people go to a really strict vegan diet and aren't eating enough vegan plant-based protein sources, they will notice that they lose hair and that their nails get real soft.
Right.
As far as oils that will make hair grow, I don't know that there's much data to support like specific oils. A few things that I have seen, stress is often the reason why a lot of people lose hair or shed hair. And so oftentimes I will gear people toward adaptogens, things like ashwagandha and things like that, that help with stress, mitigate stress.
Okay, I love that. I love that. For those that don't know what ashwagandha is, can you break that down so it can forever and consistently be broke?
Ashwagandha it's an herbal that you see, it's thrown around a lot nowadays, but it has shown to help mitigate the effects of stress on the body. So you can find it in oral supplements, you can find it mixed into teas and things like that. And so looking for things like that, there's a lot of like medicinal mushrooms, things like reishi and lion's mane and things like that, that you'll see people. You know, I think that we're realizing that traditional medicine has been around a lot longer than allopathic medicine. And so I think some people are circling back around to realize, well, some of this stuff actually must have done something or no one would have used it. And
Right.
so seeing people bring those things back into kind of more mainstream medicinals is helpful.
Mm-hmm. Corrie, one of the things that I called you about last week, for those that may be interested, stretch marks.
Stretch marks. Okay.
What
Stretch marks are
I guess specifically I want to know. I know you're about to break it down to the very last compound. What therapies do you offer for stretch marks?
Okay, so stretch marks are caused by defects in the collagen in your skin as related to stretching, right? Some people get them, some people don't. So you see people, sometimes people have massive babies and they suck back in, back to shape, not a stretch mark on them. Other people, they have small changes in their size, even just regular growth as like a adolescent can sometimes cause stretch marks. There is no cream that is going to make your stretch marks better.
Cocoa butter don't work, Corrie?
No.
Vaseline don't work, Corrie?
No, sir. And Palmer's, there is no cream that's going to make your stretch marks better.
Okay.
And it's funny because people will say, I used that Palmer's, I didn't get a stretch mark, because you were not going to ever get them. That's
because you know, black folk, we believe in cocoa butter, Corrie.
Yeah, because it wasn't the cocoa butter. It was because you weren't going to get them.
Okay.
So, but nowadays, you know, until very recently, fixing stretch marks was extremely expensive and it wasn't necessarily very effective, right? So nowadays you can find things like fractionated resurfacing and microneedling when paired with some kind of energy source can actually help. And so what it does is both modalities create a new injury that then requires your body to make new collagen, which will and decrease the appearance. There is no getting completely rid of your stretch marks unless you cut them out. And in a lot of places where people have stretch marks, that's just not a reasonable thing. What I try to tell young girls who come in for stretch marks is that that is normal and embrace who you are, right? So, you know, it's an uphill battle that you will likely lose. But if you have, you know, if you have some stretch marks on your abdomen, we can make them look better, but they will not be completely gone.
Okay. So Corrie, Switching gears a little taste. If you had two books to recommend to people, what would you recommend?
Two books. Okay, I'm a big reader. So anybody that knows me knows I have an Audible library that is way deep. So right now I am listening to Will by Will Smith, which is fabulous. I am completely sucked in. It is a rather transparent and enlightening telling of his life, and not nearly as, I was expecting it to be more about his career, but it really talks about who he is as a person. So Will is great. And then if you like fiction, The Children of Blood and Bone is probably one of my favorite fictions. It is Harry Potter meets Black Girl Magic.
Okay. What is it? What's the name of it?
It's The Children of Blood and Bone.
The Children of Blood and Bone, as in bone, 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 bone. It's not that bone, right?
That bone.
It's not lazy, crazy. No. None of them. Okay. Who wrote that, Corey?
Children of Blood and Bone. Don't make me lie.
Okay. Look it up, folks.
But it has a sequel, so it's the first book of a trilogy, and the second is The Children of Vengeance and Virtue.
Okay. I did not know that you were like into fantasy like that.
I will read anything. I just like books. I'm a nerd at heart.
Okay. Well, look, Corey, that's what I want to know. Going back to the Will Smith book, two things about Will. Is there anything in the book that Jada hadn't told already? Because Jada been running her trap.
More than halfway through the book, and he's not even with Jada yet.
Okay. Because Jada just been telling it all. You know what I'm saying?
He is rather, yes. I commend him for being tight-lipped, but I think that that what it shows is that he is thoughtful. I think he is often portrayed as kind of goofy and not necessarily intelligent, but he was hustling. Like he designed his life and put his mind to it and made himself who he is. And you have to commend that. I mean, you have to give him his props for who he is.
For sure. I've always loved Will Smith.
Yeah.
People try to hate, but we just keep it funky on TAJ and Friends,
Yeah.
Corey. Back in the day, before hip hop ventured off to being more criminal, more street, you know what I'm saying? I mean, Will was all right, especially, brand new funk.
Like it was clean,
Summertime.
Talks about the reason he never cursed was because his grandmother got on him. She found his book of like lyrics and was like, intelligent people don't need to talk like this.
Right.
So, I mean, I think it's true. I think, expletives are necessary for someone who doesn't know how to express themselves otherwise.
Reverend, have you seen Bel Air, Corey?
I have not. There's not a lot. There are not enough hours in the day for me to watch TV. I have to be honest with you.
Well, let me tell you.
Lay down at 9:30. I'm like, I'm done. No TV, no nothing. Sadly, I will read before I will watch TV. So I have not. But I hear it's darker than the original.
It's a drama.
Yeah.
It's not dark.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, it's so well done, Corey.
It's just
they kept true to the essence of it. Okay. And it's done so if you get a sliver of time, that's one of my favorite shows right now, Corey. It's the bomb, to use the vernacular of the 90s.
Yeah.
Corey, are you from Hempstead, New York? I believe a famous rap lyric said, "I once knew this crackhead from Hempstead."
Yeah.
Are you a hip hop fan?
Because Flavor Flav was from Uniondale, which was like one town over, and like Leaders in New School, they were all from Long Island. So
Flavor Flav on the hype tip. I'm your hype drink. Come drink a big sip. Corey, top 5 rappers dead or alive?
Okay, Biggie, Tupac, Nas, Jay-Z, and Tribe.
Ooh, what's your favorite Tribe song, Corey?
Oh, check the rhyme.
Check the rap. Come on now. Come on now. Corey. Corey. Now, this is the part where we get into the weeds.
Okay.
Back in the day in the Boulevard on Linden.
Yes. No. No, I'm not gonna sing for you.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna
All
stop
right.
right there.
Big Luther or Little Luther, Corey?
Big Luther. Big Luther.
Favorite Luther songs?
Favorite Luther songs. House is Not a Home. That's probably my favorite Luther song. And then Dance with My Father.
You know, everybody says that. Like Corey, on the real girl,
Real.
the last 3 interviews I've done, I ask people what's their favorite Luther song, and it's always House is Not a Home,
Yeah.
Song for My Father.
Yeah.
Why did those 2 songs resonate with you so much?
Well, first of all, his first album where House is Not a Home was on it. I swear I swear it didn't have ridges in it by the time she stopped playing that album. She played that album to death.
For sure.
For sure. And then my daddy dropped it and it broke. Ooh, that was a rough night in my house. But anyway.
Bad night.
It was a bad night. But yeah, I think those 2 songs show his evolution.
Yeah.
As an artist.
Yeah. No doubt. No doubt.
So early.
Okay. I'm sorry, what'd you say, Corey?
Sad that he died so early.
I know.
Him and Whitney.
Girl, don't get me started. Prince.
That's Aaron's girl. Don't talk about Whitney.
Well, listen, Corey. If you're in the Atlanta metropolitan area, or if you're going to be coming to the Atlanta metropolitan area, which every Black person in the world is in Atlanta at least one weekend out of the year, can you tell folk where to come see you?
So my practice is called MetroDerm PC. We have 5 offices. I work out of the Sandy Springs office and the Paulding Hiram offices. And you can find me at MetroDerm every day but Wednesday.
Okay. Okay. There you have it. If you're having any issues or want to send any of your family members, and if you're just coming in late, again, I'm not only the president, I'm a client of Dr. Corrie. Dr. Corrie, I just want to take the time to thank you for coming out and coming to the interview tonight. It's been illuminating. We've solved several age-old issues in the community. I have to count them down. If you just tuning in right now, you have to go back and watch the interview, because Corrie has addressed the things that have plagued us in the community. She's addressed ashiness. She's addressed keloids. She's addressed dandruff. She's addressed African black soap, oils, and all of that, and stretch marks. Yes. So you did the thing, Corrie. I want you to have a wonderful weekend and a nice night. Give your love, give my love to your family.
I sure will. Thanks for having me.
Thank y'all. Everybody, thank y'all for tuning in. Follow Dr. Corrie on her IG, and follow me too while you're at it, if you're not doing so already. Tune in next week for nationally recognized relationship expert, Dr. Aldwan Tart. Holla at y'all. Give it up for Dr. Corrie Alford, y'all.
Bye, guys.
Peace.